Well, hello. I'm Elaine Brewster, and welcome to Aspects of Energy, a forum where we talk about ways to raise our energy. Today, we're going to talk about creating things because I am at the Timpanogos Storytelling Festival all weekend. Now, here for starters is a picture of me painted by a granddaughter, Reese, and she told me that was me, and so she gave me the picture. And my grandkids know that if they paint me something, I will frame it and I will keep it. And so they can be 20 years old and I'll still have it. But young kids are very, very creative. And a lot of older people think that they're not. Now, people can be creative in all kinds of areas. And one time I asked dancer, former ballerina dancer, Julie Tara, how she considered business was creative. And she looked at me and said, "Oh, it's very creative. Every time I have a conversation with a person, I am trying to figure out what meets their needs." And so she said that even business was creative. So I have some stories for you today because that's where my mind is the act of creating stories. So the first one, just a minute, get lunch out of our mouth. Okay. Well, it is September. And I think that a lot of you, like I, do a lot of canning in September, right? And when you do canning, there are fruit flies all over. And they come at your eyes and your face and they're on your skin. They're very bothersome. But I ask you, have you ever considered life from the point of view of a fruit fly? Now, what I tell you may be shocking, so hang in there. The mother fruit fly was sitting on the edge of the kitchen curtain with her children around her: Timmy, Charlotte, Maddie, Moody, and Jennifer. She was discoursing on fruit fly behavior and answering questions. "Mommy, where do fruit flies come from?" "Well, no one knows, but when fruit appears, we appear. Isn't that magical?" Now, over there on the counter are 7 glass canisters. They will be filled with fruit, and then in will be poured a hot, sticky liquid. And that's what we're waiting for. Is it good, Mom? Oh, it's very good, but you must taste it daintily. And they all tried it. That's right. Now, when you go over, stay on the outside rim. Don't go inside. The steam may pull you down and you may drown. That's what happened to Uncle Oscar. I saw them fish him out with a spoon and toss him in the sink. "Did he look like this?" asked Timmy. "Yes, he did, Timmy, but that's impolite." Now, let me tell you about the Wayne Gretzky move. Wayne Gret Moody, do you not know Wayne Gretzky? Why, all of you children can read. Huh, that is why I know so much about the world myself. All fruit flies are born with such magnificent, multifaceted red eyes that reading is second nature to them. Now, there is a square of newsprint under each one of those canisters. Everyone go over and read something and come back. And so all of the children lifted off like little drones hovering. And they went over and each read something. And then they came back and they sat again on their circle on the kitchen curtain. All right, Maddie. Clearwater, Florida. An alligator was found in the Sit-away swimming pool. Local management fished it out. Well, aren't we grateful for local management? All right, Charlotte. Hobble Creek, Utah. A black bear was found out on the deck up in a tree at the Jackson's house, and all the family came out to look at it. And the mama, Jackson, she was so surprised that she went inside the house and locked the door. Oh, well, that was unfortunate for the rest of the Jacksons. All right, Moody. London, England. Simon Cowell was almost seen smiling at. The rest of it was under the canister. What does that mean, Mom? I'm sure we'll never know. Now, about Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky was the greatest hockey player of all time because he said, I go not where the puck is going to be. I go to where the puck is going to be. And so that is how we stay alive, children. You see, those great big galoots over there that put in the fruit, they're not very smart. They just swipe at us this way and swish at us this way. But when it comes sideways, it's just an air roller coaster. It actually feels rather good. It's only when they come above you that there's danger. Timmy got it. Oh, I get it, Mom. It's physics. So they take that long swatty thing, they swat here, it makes an air pocket, and that puts us there. They never hit us. Oh, Timmy, the Wayne Gretzky in words. Yes, indeed. So they hit here, we toss there. It's just toss and swirl, swish and swirl. And the children picked up the phrase, toss and twirl, swish and swirl. They made a song out of it, and Timmy did somersaults, and Charlotte and Maddie started turning around in circles. Moody did a handstand on 2 of his 3 pairs of legs, and little Jennifer held out her wings like a springtime fairy dress as she twirled around. Oh, all right, children, said Mother. They're filling the canisters. Are you ready? All right, everyone be careful. And so they lifted up and they went over like little drones hovering, each to their own canister. And then they came back and they settled again on the kitchen curtain. Well, how was it? Oh, it was good, Mom. It is, isn't it? Would you like to hear about Aunt Angelique's toss and twirl? Oh, yes, Mommy. Well, you see in the wall is a big rectangular cutout that leads to another world. What's in there, Mommy? Well, Aunt Angelique said there was no fruit, no canning, no steam. She said there was a big, long, soft thing they called a couch. There were 2 chairs, a vase of flowers, and then over in the bay window, there was a black monster, shiny, standing on 3 legs. And you could see inside its brains because there were wires this way and that way. And its brain was held up, a triangular, black, shiny brain held up on 1 stick. And it had teeth, 52 white, cut apart teeth, and capped with black in 2s and 3s and 2s and 3s. And there was one of those big creatures sitting on a bench. It had 2 large flesh-colored clubs and 5 protrusions, and it was tapping the white teeth. Oh, that sounds scary, Mom. Why did she stay? She said it was making wonderful sounds, and she was just drawn there by the vibrations. Aunt Angelique just sailed back and forth on top of those white teeth. And every now and then she got too close to that face and it swiped it this way and swished it that way, but it never hurt her. And so she was able to come back to us. But I would really like you children not to go in there. And they all agreed, but then they picked up toss and twirl, swish and swirl, toss and twirl, swish and swirl. And Timmy did somersaults, and Charlotte and Maddie turned a circle in the other direction. And Moody was doing a handstand on 2 of his 3 pairs of legs. And little Jennifer held out her wings like a springtime fairy dress. And they were all having so much fun, none of them noticed a black rectangular shadow coming from the side and mounting till it was over them. And then they felt such a tremendous toss and twirl, a swish and swirl than they had ever felt before. And after a minute, Mother shook her head and opened her eyes, All the children dusted themselves off, settled again in their kitchen curtain, and that's when the mother looked. It seemed like the kitchen curtain was whiter than it had been before. The room looked lighter than it did before. Could she see through her children? Were they kind of translucent? Oh, well, everything was as it should be. They were there in their family circle. And so she began, as before. Now, children, let me tell you. You see, I told you it might be shocking. And perhaps most shocking of all is the fact that fruit flies, like us, surely live after this life. The moral of that is, if you have to send one or two on prematurely, I wouldn't worry about it. All right, that's the fruit flies. Now, when people tell about stories, I don't know if you've ever attended a storytelling festival, but when people think of stories, they often think of children. And it is very useful to tell children stories. That is, believe me, not all that is in a storytelling festival. Because I don't think kids would really understand that last one. But this was a story, and I'll just tell you the condensed version, that I had to tell my 4-year-old granddaughter to get her out in the car because she was having so much fun playing. We have a lot of small stuffed animals and that I use for teaching in schools. And she was playing with all the stuffed animals and she didn't want to put them away. So I finally put them in a box and I put them in the garage and said, okay, it's time to go. And she still wouldn't go. And so I told her this story about how I looked everywhere for her. I looked in the closet, I looked upstairs, I looked in the basement, and I could not find her. And so I was going to have to go to her mom and tell her I had lost their 4-year-old child. At this point, I'm saying, get in the car and I'll tell you the rest of the story. And she did. So here's the rest of the story. It was summertime and the windows were open in the car. And just as I was pulling out of the garage, I heard this little sound. I stopped, I heard it again. And this time I turned off the car and I went over to the box of stuffed animals. And there was Carmen. She was about 5 inches tall. When we had put all those stuffed animals in the box, she had decided she wanted to be one of them. And she had gone in and she had shrunk in size till she was the size of the stuffed animals. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to see you. And she waved at me and I said, but it's time to go home now. She shook her head. I need you to come home. You're really not a stuffed animal. This time she put her hands on her hips. No, she wanted to stay there. Finally, I thought of everything I could. And then I came out with the ace of spades. And I said, your little brother, your new little brother needs you home. Oh dear, stuffed animals, baby brother. Stuffed animals, baby brother. She decided that the baby brother would win out. So she put her hands up. I reached down and as I pulled her out of the stuffed animal box, she turned into a 4-year-old size again. And I was able to strap her in her car seat and take her home. And her mother never had to learn that I, for a little while, had lost her daughter. They tell stories called bedtime stories for kids, but they also tell ghost stories and scary stories. There is a man whose name is Donald Davis, and he's not actually that much older than I am. Nevertheless, he is the grandfather of American storytelling. And he almost starts a lot of his stories saying, when I was a little boy growing up in North Carolina, there's actually a lot of storytellers and musicians from North Carolina. But he says, if you know a person's name and something about their story, they are not forgotten. So this is a story about my great grandfather, William Henry Streeper, who was the last living Utah Pony Express rider. He um, he sometimes rode the fast horses, but generally he was on a mule train headed by his very smart and wonderful Muggins. And that was how he kept um, the larger packages that were going. Let me just get back on here for a sec and find our participants and maybe do a little bit of muting. There we go. Hey. Well, one day Grandpa was heading from desolate eastern Nevada into desolate western Utah when behind him he heard one of the fast riders coming. Eat my dust, Bill, eat my dust. He was whooping and hollering. Oh, everyone on the trail knew Black Bill. He was black eyebrows, black hair, and black eyes, and he was an ancient 24 compared to their average of 17, sometimes even down as young as 13. Well, he lifted his hat and he whooped back at him. He thought, man, these young fellers, they get to ride some of the finest steeds in America, and they get to go at speeds faster than most Americans will ever go. About a half a mile on, he could see a saloon at the side of the road that Nevada had built to accommodate its miners. But whose horse did he see tied up in front? The Pony Express riders. He didn't like drinking. He said it was a waste of money and it wasted the man. Besides which, all riders had taken an oath, and it's the same oath that they take now when they do a reenactment between St. Joseph and California. I do hereby swear before the great and living God that during my engagement and while I am an employee of Russell, Majors, and Waddell, under no circumstances will I use profane language. I will not drink any intoxicating liquors. I will not quarrel or fight with any other employee of the firm, and that in every respect, I will conduct myself honestly, be faithful to my duties, and so direct all my acts as to win the confidence of my employers. So help me God. Well, drinking certainly was not that oath. As Bill got closer, he stopped his mules and he went inside, and there was the kid. He was already drunk. Oh, Bill, he said, come have a drink with me. Bill said, tain't my drinking day. Tain't yours either. Now get out. Oh, come on, man. Just one drink, old man. Bill pulled his sleeve away from him. I said, you need to get about your business, as I am going to do. And so he stomped out. He got on his mules and he headed on his way, going east. Well, after a little while, here came the rider again. Eat my dust, Bill, eat my dust. This time Bill didn't smile and he didn't lift his hat. Now, Bill had never gotten into any danger with predators, coyotes, with Indians, Native Americans, with anything, because Muggins was so smart and he paid attention to Muggins. They came to an area that started to be really rocky, and just as he rounded the corner, Muggins' ears started flipping. And so he slowed down. He pulled around the corner. He looked up, sideways. He looked everywhere. And there on the path, a man lay prone. He got closer. It was the Pony Express rider. And he was dead. Dead drunk. Oh, what am I going to do with that cussed fool? He kicked him. Nothing. He yelled at him right in his ear. Didn't even budge. He took out his 6-shooter and he blasted 2 shots right down by his ear. He was dead to the world. Well, I can't leave him, can't leave his horse, and I can't leave the mail, he said, as they piled in importance. Well, he was dead drunk there near on a ravine that was on a ridge. And so he pulled him up onto the side. He got his lariat, wrapped it around his armpits, wrapped it around the seat, pulled him over so that his head was hanging on one side, his feet were on the other. He tied him up so that he would not and could not get off that horse. Then he tied the horse behind his mule team, And there at a nice steady 3 miles an hour, they continued on their way. Well, after about an hour of bouncing upside down, the kid woke up and he found that he was tied up. Ah, thanks, Bill, thanks. You can let me up now. Not on your life, you cussed fool. You caused me a lot of problem. Oh, come on, Bill. I gotta go in by myself. They can't see me like this. You were drinking and you had no right to. I don't like fooling around with anybody that doesn't honor their word. And so they just kept heading east, the kid pleading and begging and wheedling and whining, and Bill trying to ignore him, probably singing one of his little songs that he sang on the road. But when that station was a bare dot in the distance, Bill finally let him up and let him go in by himself. Well, they didn't have to know when Bill finally got there what had happened. No, the schedule did that. The Pony Express wasn't run on a schedule minute by minute, but pretty close. They wanted the horses to go at a schedule of about 10 miles an hour, which is pretty fast because a trot is 5. And when he was behind a mule team, he came in far later than that. They let him ride out the rest of that route, and then he never rode Pony Express again. But for Grandpa Bill, he just continued being honest because, well, that worked for him. All right, now here's one more quote from Donald Davis. He said, I would thank you. And I would suggest anybody to look online and find stories by Donald Davis or the man that we had on. He was the 7th one in this series. His name is Bill Lepp. And they're fabulous storytellers. They're very interesting. Donald said, "You are the museum of your own life. If you don't tell your stories, who will?" So here's a story from my childhood. Have you ever made your mom or your dad so mad that you could see steam coming off their head, maybe coming out their eyes? Well, that happened one Christmas. I'm guessing I was 6, maybe 7. And my parents had gone shopping at Christmas time, leaving me at home with my next older brother, which meant that he was upstairs and he would never come down. He had no clue what I was doing. My sister was at work, and my oldest brother, oh, if he came home and he saw me snooping into things, well, he would just get mad at me. But he's not my parent. He can't spank me or anything. What can he do? So I decided to go on the journey that all children do, and that is looking for their presents. I looked around under the tree to see if there was anything I couldn't, suspect, and they were all normal. I looked behind the tree. No, nothing was there yet. I looked behind the couch. I looked in the coat closet. I looked everywhere. I looked in the pantry. There were no presents. I knew they'd gone shopping already. Where were these? There's only one place they could be, and that was in my parents' bedroom. Oh, this was in the days when you didn't step foot in your parents' bedroom. It was verboten. But with childhood courage, this was a mission that was worth stepping into their forbidden territory. So I walked in, I opened up the cedar chest. It was just like an old wedding dress and old paper in there. That was nothing. I opened the drawers, lingerie, socks, jewelry. Oh, I should come back and look at that drawer later. Bottom drawer, shirts. Oh, that was nothing interesting. Well, finally, I realized after looking under the bed, it had to be in the closet. So I went over to the closet. This was a small closet in those days, small house. It was just my dad's shoes that were in a jumble down on the floor. I was so disappointed. But then I thought, oh, the shoes are just all toward the front. I'm sure that there's something deeper. And so I crawled in deeper, and there were the sacks. I pulled several of them out and I looked in the first one. Oh, there were these little white, purple, and red beads. And when you pulled them apart, they made a very satisfying sound. There you go. They were called pop beads. And I thought, oh, these are fun. And I made a necklace. I tried making a bracelet, but that was harder. And I put them back in the sack. Oh, this is a great present. I went to the next sack. Oh, it was two cars, one for me and one for my just older brother. These were see-through cars. They were transparent. His was white and mine was like a lime yellow. And it was so cool because you could see the workings, you could see the gears inside. And not only that, but all you had to do was pull back on it, zoom, and it went all by itself. You didn't have to sit there on the floor and make it go. Oh, this is going to be a great present, I said. And I put it back in the sack. And then came the tour de force. In the next sack was a book. It was turquoise colored cover with a tree on the front and I think two kids and a little dog maybe. And it was called Under the Apple Tree. And I could read it. I started opening it and I could read it. I knew this book was for me. It was on my level and I was so excited. Now, in the middle of my reading, I heard the back door open, but I was having so much fun reading. I figured that was just my oldest brother. He would probably never come into the parents' room. And again, if he did, he was just going to yell at me and I'd put the stuff away. So I kept reading it. And then all of a sudden, I felt a definite chill in the doorway. I looked up and there were my two parents, totally unbelieving at this lovely mess that I had around me. I could tell there was steam coming out of my mother's head. I'm not sure she'd ever been so mad. Well, what happened was I really got a sound spanking. And in those days, if I ever really, really did anything naughty and got a spanking, I knew I deserved it. And so it didn't hurt. The only spankings that hurt were the ones that seemed unfair, where I knew I didn't deserve them. Oh, I knew I deserved this. And the other thing that happened, they didn't give me any of those gifts that I had already looked at until the day after Christmas. And I want you to know that that was the longest Christmas day that anybody has ever lived. And so I just want you all to encourage your nieces, nephews, grandchildren, that they are nicer people than I was. All right.